Heard from Sterling and Team Sunshine. Now, Will would have me say it's Team Honest, but it's Team Rain Cloud because I force you. Give me the worries. Give me the concerns, and we'll start with the captain of this team, Will Overstreet. What's your number one concern?
Number one concern is what have you done really well in the last couple of years? I had these big games, right? It came down to a kick. You saw yesterday against Georgia State, Florida State. Came down to a kick. Georgia Tech, Florida State. Came down to a kick. Right now, you don't have a kicker. You don't have a named number one guy.
I keep hearing you've got three that are all good.
Yeah. Three means you have none right now, right?
Yep.
So I think that's going to come down. When you look at the big games, you've got to play, and, everybody's poll about what is success. It's a 9 wins versus 8 wins, 10 wins versus 9 wins. Those are all small things, right? So when I look at it, you're going to need a kicker at some point to pull off a big kick to win one of those games, especially when you go on the road. That's a tough thing to do. So right now, that's a big concern. You don't have that.
Very good. JJ, what are you concerned about?
I don't want to steal Daniel's thunder on it, but the injuries is a big concern. I blew my knee out in the first game my sophomore year. I know we have depth now, and I feel much more comfortable with the ability to bring in backups and reserves and keep people fresh. But I think injuries is one thing, but, you got a brand new secondary back there too. And do these guys gel, and do they know how to rely on each other? And I think that's something too. If you're used to being or playing with somebody, Chazon and I knew what we were thinking, before plays. I could look at him and know that, or, Chris Mims or whoever it is on my outside. But I think that's a concern, is just some of these guys in the secondary haven't played together very long. That's concerning, and injuries are always going to bite you.
What do you got, Daniel?
Yeah. Injuries is mine. I don't know if we have a coach in that position. I think soft tissue injuries are preventable in this day and age. I'm sorry about your knee there, JJ, and I've had that before. But, there's a bunch. I worry about linebacker depth. We'll hit it with the kicker. I know Ollie's excited about the running back room, but you got a new running back coach there, and we saw how the offense struggled last year with the new offensive coordinator. Can we get a pass game? Do we have wide receivers that can be a real deep threat for us?
Wow. I didn't know it could hit them all.
Yeah.
He's rolling them off.
And
he's bringing some serious rain cloud energy.
But I think
real.
I think the biggest one is maybe Coach Heupel's as well, and I think that's why they may have had a scrimmage without Nico, is what's your quarterback depth? What's going to happen if that injury bug hits him? It's a guy that came in 180 pounds. I think he's up to over 200 now. Like, he's done the right things. But this is a new SEC schedule, and NC State's not an easy team.
Right.
It's going to be a tough game.
Well, let me go there for a second, because we talked about this before the show as well. What happens at quarterback? Let's say, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but Nico goes down for 2 or 3 games. Do they go with the kid who's been around, came from UCF with Heupel, Gaston Moore? Is he going to be your guy because he knows that offense and he can run it? Or do they turn it over to the freshman, Jake Merklinger, who might have more talent? It is a pretty big question mark there behind Nico at this point.
It is, and you hope you don't go to it, right? You hope you don't need that answer. But you've seen a lot of injuries at quarterback, at least for a game or two.
Yeah.
So you do have to be prepared for it and be able to answer the question of what are we going to do at that point in time. So you have to know that.
And I think the only time Tennessee's had a season where a quarterback made it all the way through in the last 5 or 6 years was last year with Joe Milton.
Yeah.
Who happens to be a monster.
Yeah, he was a monster.
Right. Let me ask you a question, Will, and everybody else can jump in here too. I asked you about Nico and the hype around him in that last segment. What about James Pierce? I think I can see why James Pierce would be at the top of NFL draft lists because of his skill set and how valuable that is at that level. When I see him listed as the #1 player in college football, I think he's a heck of a football player. But the #1 player in the country, to me, from that position, if you're going to be top player in the country as an edge rusher, you better be Jadeveon Clowney. Yeah. That kind of absolute takeover a game freak. Is James Pierce getting a little too much hype at this point, or do you think he's going to grow into this role and be the #1 guy in the country?
I mean, he's got the skill set to be that kind of guy. It's just a matter of can he grow into it? Because I think there were things he could work on last year. There was a need for an extra rush move when the speed rush didn't work. Yeah. There was some guys lining up and running at him. He needed to improve on that when they kind of said, hey, we're going to attack you. Yeah. And let's face it, teams are going to do stuff against him this year that may cut down just on his
Yes.
actual what he produces. Now, he may just be as valuable or more valuable this year because of the amount of attention he's going to bring.
Right.
But that means you got to have other people step up on the team. So, it may be a down year stat-wise, but he actually may be a more valuable player to you.
Right.
But there's things he can work on, but you're right. To be the number one player, you've got to be a guy that can take over from many different angles. And that means, not just sacks, but getting the ball, right? Like, you got to be able to get the ball if you're that kind of guy. So we'll see if he's able to step up to that level. I do agree he's an obvious first-round top 5 pick just because of what he's got. But to be the number one truly, like, defensive player of the year type of person, you got to do some other things too.
Well, and he flashed that in the Citrus Bowl with the interception.
Yeah.
Where, just a tremendous play
like I said,
there.
he's got flashes of
Yeah.
it. It's just, can you be consistent, and will you do it in the Oklahoma game, Georgia game, Alabama game? It
The money
depends
games.
when you do it, too. That's the big thing.
Yeah,
when
if
you
you
do
get
it in the game.
if 3 of your 12 sacks come against UTEP, it's not going to mean much.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add there?
I think,
I
think we hit all
Okay.
the rain. We need more sunshine now.
You went through the roster. That's good.
But the wide receivers, to me, is still the other one of, we always talk about, they're better because they were here last year. Listen, there's a lot of talent, supposedly, but I haven't seen that talent come out, and that's the big area that needs to help Nico this year.
It'll be, again, how much are they going to help him? How much is he going to help them? We will know at the end of this season whether last season was just, man, you had the gunpowder, you just didn't have the match. Or you didn't have the gunpowder either. We're going to know because the more I look at this team in reverse, having watched Joe Milton with the Patriots now, scattershot stuff, I'm like, I think a lot of that was just Milton not being the most accurate guy in the world.
I agree.
We'll see, though. We'll see. Do these receivers step up and look better with a different quarterback this year? If not, then I'm going to owe Joe Milton a big apology. All right. When we come back, we asked you, now all of our guys are going to answer, what's a successful season for Tennessee in 2024? We'll see how many guys say playoff or bust. We'll see how many guys say, 8 wins if you do it right and finish strong. Come on back on the Sports Source.